After years of debate, Irish archaeologists finally forced open a 20-ton stone door that had been recorded moving on its own inside the cliffs of the Giant's Causeway. And what was standing inside that sealed chamber is something no one on the team was prepared to find. 7 massive figures, each between 7 and 8 feet tall, arranged in perfect military formation in the darkness. All of them facing the door, all of them radiating the exact body temperature of a living human being. The chamber had been sealed inside volcanic rock for over 60 million years. Nothing should have been alive in there. Nothing should have been warm. But the readings didn't lie. And within 4 days of opening that door, one of those 7 figures vanished without a trace. 3 researchers have since abandoned their careers. The Irish government has buried every piece of evidence it can reach. This is the full story they tried to erase. The footage that started everything. This whole thing began because a 34-year-old electrician from Dublin named Ronan Gallagher wanted some sunset photos. That's it. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't searching for anything. He was just a guy flying his drone along the cliffs near the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, trying to get a few nice shots for his social media. What his camera recorded that evening would set off a chain of events that still hasn't ended. Now let me tell you something important about the Giant's Causeway. This place is one of the most studied geological formations on Earth. Roughly 40,000 interlocking basalt columns formed when ancient lava cooled over 300 feet deep, at temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees. Hundreds of surveys have been conducted here, thousands of papers written, and not a single one has ever detected anything hollow inside those cliffs. Not once. But that evening, as Ronan's drone hovered along the cliff face, it captured something that defied everything geologists thought they knew. A massive stone slab, roughly 20 tons of solid basalt, began pushing outward from the rock wall. It moved slowly, deliberately, like a door swinging open on invisible hinges. Behind the slab was nothing but pitch-black darkness. The whole event lasted exactly 11 seconds. Then the stone slid back into place so perfectly that afterward, you couldn't find a single crack or seam anywhere on the rock. Ronan posted the footage online. Within hours, the video had been shared thousands of times, and the scientific community came completely unglued. Researchers were calling him demanding raw files, GPS coordinates, equipment details. Dr. Siobhan Kearney, a senior geologist at Trinity College Dublin, who had spent 15 years studying that exact coastline, contacted him personally. She told him his footage either shattered every established rule of volcanic geology or was the most elaborate hoax anyone had ever attempted. She needed to see the site with her own eyes. But here's the deal. What Dr. Kearney found behind that stone door makes the moving slab look like a footnote. And I haven't even gotten to the part where one of the figures disappears. What the radar found, Dr. Kearney arrived within 48 hours with ground-penetrating radar, equipment that can see through solid rock and map hidden structures. She set up along the cliff face, calibrated everything, and began scanning. Her assistant, a doctoral student named Maeve Connolly, was watching the display over her shoulder. She later told colleagues that Dr. Kearney didn't gasp or shout. She just froze. She stood staring at the screen for nearly 2 full minutes, then quietly said, "That can't be right." She ran the scan again. Same result. A third time. Identical. The radar showed a massive hollow chamber, 12 feet deep, 26 feet wide, concealed inside what every geologist on Earth had always assumed was solid, unbroken basalt. Ace. Hidden void inside a formation like this shouldn't exist. That alone would have been a career-defining discovery, the kind that gets published in every major journal. But the chamber wasn't what made her go silent. It was what was standing inside it. 7 tall figures, upright, motionless, each one between 7 and 8 feet tall, significantly larger than any human who has ever lived in Ireland or anywhere else in recorded history. They were arranged in precise military formation, each positioned exactly 4.5 feet apart, and every single one was facing the sealed stone door, facing the exit, standing at attention, waiting. And get this, basalt doesn't form around standing objects. The only way those figures could be inside that rock is if they were already there when the lava was still liquid. That eruption happened when dinosaurs were still dying out, and mammals were the size of rats. Whatever those things are, they existed on this planet long before. anything resembling a human ever took a breath. Something older than the Himalayas was standing in the dark, arranged in formation, staring at the only way out, the hollow shells. The next morning, Dr. Cillian Byrne, a geophysicist from Queen's University Belfast who specializes in subsurface imaging, arrived with more advanced scanning equipment, the kind that can differentiate between types of material hidden beneath stone. When he started his work, witnesses say he was cracking jokes with the team, totally relaxed. 20 minutes later, he was on the phone with his department head, speaking so low nobody could hear a word. When he hung up, he sat on the rocks and didn't speak for 10 minutes. His scan revealed the 7 figures weren't solid. They were hollow, thin outer shells surrounding empty interior spaces, almost like cocoons or casings. The internal structure suggested something had once been living inside them. Or, and this is the possibility nobody on that, Cliff wanted to say out loud, something might still be alive inside them, sealed away, dormant. In a state nobody had a scientific word for. Here's the catch. The material those shells were made of shouldn't exist. Nothing organic survives 2,000 degrees. Nothing biological withstands the heat of molten lava. Yet these structures had endured inside rock that was once liquid fire, remaining perfectly intact through an era predating every civilization, every recorded history, and every continent as we know them today. Dr. Byrne turned to Dr. Kearney and said, "Either every piece of equipment I own is broken, or physics has a hole in it the size of Ireland." He wasn't joking. His equipment wasn't broken. They checked 3 times. And what they discovered next made the hollow shells seem almost ordinary. Body heat and heartbeats. Dr. Oy Flanagan, a thermal imaging specialist from University College Cork, arrived 3 days later. She'd been told there were unusual heat, readings near the cliff, possibly residual volcanic activity or underground water.
There was a hive of volcanic activity up here in Northern Ireland. The basalt columns are formed by huge lava eruptions.
Nobody told her about the figures or the hollow shells. They wanted completely clean, unbiased data. It was a freezing March morning, 39 degrees outside, rocks ice cold. Dr. Flanagan powered up her thermal camera, pointed it at the hidden chamber, and waited for the reading to stabilize. She actually laughed out loud. Not because anything was funny, because the reading was so flatly impossible that her brain defaulted to the only explanation that made sense. Someone was playing an elaborate practical joke on her. The chamber was lit up in bright orange and red on the thermal display. The 6 remaining figures were radiating heat at 99 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the internal body temperature of a living human being. Now, pay attention to this part. There is no mechanism in any branch of science that explains how anything sealed inside rock can maintain body heat for millions of years surrounded by freezing ocean air. Heat dissipates. That's one of the most fundamental laws of thermodynamics. Dr. Flanagan ran the scan 4 times, same reading. She asked every person on that cliff if this was a prank. When she realized they were serious, she packed her equipment and didn't return a single phone call for 3 weeks. But the thermal readings weren't even the worst part. The team installed vibration sensors against the rock wall. What they picked up was a rhythmic pulse repeating every 4.7 seconds. Steady, consistent, coming from directly behind the sealed door. Dr. Byrne was the one who said it first, choosing his words very carefully. It sounded exactly like a slow, resting heartbeat, the kind of pulse you'd detect from something very large, something in a very deep, sustained state of sleep, something that had been sleeping for a very, very long time. The thermal signatures weren't constant either, sometimes spiking above 100 degrees for no apparent reason, then gradually dropping back down. The fluctuations didn't correspond to ocean tides or weather patterns or any external variable the team could identify. Whatever was generating the heat operated on its own internal rhythm, like a biological system pulsing and cycling inside those hollow shells, breathing, waiting. If this is making the hair on your arms stand up, hit subscribe right now, because what happened next with the missing figure is the detail that made 2 researchers permanently abandon their careers. And you need to hear it. The vanishing? Before the team was forced off the site, Dr. Kearney managed to sneak back 4 days after the initial scan for a standard comparison. She expected identical results. When the new image rendered on her screen, she called Dr. Byrne immediately. Her voice was shaking so badly he thought she'd been hurt. One of the 7 figures was gone. Only 6 remained. Ronan had installed a motion activated. Camera pointed directly at the stone door. It had been recording non-stop. The footage showed 0 exterior movement. The door never opened. The seal never cracked. Yet inside that locked chamber, sealed behind 20 tons of solid volcanic rock, one of those 8-foot-tall entities had simply vanished. No dust disturbed on the chamber floor. No debris, no tunnel, no scratch marks, no residue, no trace of any kind. As if the thing had dissolved into the rock or walked straight through the walls, like the stone wasn't even there. The researchers tore through the data, looking for any explanation. Was there a hidden passage the radar had missed? A structural weakness? A gap? Anything at all? Nothing. The walls were solid and unbroken on every scan. There was physically nowhere for an 8-foot-tall entity to go. One of them was already out. It had left a sealed room without using the door, without breaking a wall, without leaving a single molecular trace that it had ever moved. And the question that now kept every researcher on this project lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, was devastatingly simple. Where is it right now? And here's what made it worse.
A massive giant who put all these rocks together. But whenever you find out the real story, I think personally that is one of the most exciting parts of Northern Ireland's geology.
Every 72 hours, the team ran fresh scans. The 6 remaining figures were changing positions, shifting a few inches each time. Slow, deliberate, purposeful. They were no longer in that precise formation. Now, they were clustering together, drifting steadily toward the sealed door. It looked like something waking from a very long sleep, stretching, orienting, remembering where the exit was. Think about what that means. These things have been entombed inside volcanic rock from an era when this planet was completely unrecognizable. They've outlasted the dinosaurs. They've endured ice ages that buried entire landscapes under miles of ice. They've survived continental drift, the rise and fall of every species, and the entire span of human civilization. And now, right now, in our lifetime, they're moving. They're gathering at the exit. The figure closest to the door was only a few feet from the entrance. Its heartbeat was the strongest of all 6, getting louder and more insistent with every single reading. Whatever countdown started millions of years ago is approaching 0. The cover-up. Over 1 million people visit the Giant's Causeway every single year. Families walk across those ancient black stone columns. Children climb on them and pose for photos. Tourists listen to cheerful guides tell fun stories about mythical giants building a bridge to Scotland. Those visitors have absolutely no idea what's really there. They don't know that just 39 feet behind the cliff face, hidden in complete darkness, 6 massive entities are radiating human body heat into the cold stone and inching closer to the exit with every passing day. The government moved fast. A team from an official Irish environmental agency arrived and issued a public statement. They declared the drone footage was nothing more than a trick of light and shadow playing across the rock face. No hidden chamber, no anomalies, no figures, nothing to worry about. Case closed, everyone go home. But their own lead consultant, Dr. Niamh Doyle, a geomorphologist brought in specifically to debunk the findings, refused to sign the official report. Colleagues say she reviewed the sonar data in silence for 20 minutes, then stood up and walked out without a word. She resigned the following week. The only line anyone remembers from her letter: "What I observed in that data is not something I'm willing to help conceal." Her university profile has been taken down. She hasn't given a single public interview since. And get this, Ronan Gallagher began receiving official takedown requests within days of the government statement. His original video was flagged and forcibly removed from 3 separate platforms. He received a legal letter from a firm he'd never heard of, warning him against distributing what they called unverified geological data that could cause undue public alarm. When he tried uploading the footage a second time under a different account, it was scrubbed within hours. He told a close friend it felt like being systematically erased, like someone powerful wanted his footage to have never existed in the first place. The agency sealed the cliff section with heavy barriers and warning signs. Ask a ranger why, and they'll say falling rocks. Every scientist who worked that site knows what those barriers are really protecting. Dr. Flanagan tried one last time to get the truth out. She spent months meticulously analyzing her thermal data, compiling heartbeat patterns and movement tracking into a comprehensive research paper. She submitted it to the official geological board, believing the world had a fundamental right to know what was inside those cliffs. The board rejected her paper immediately. They cited faulty equipment and flawed methodology without ever reviewing her actual data or asking a single follow-up question. A colleague who sat on that board contacted her in secret weeks later. He told her the real reason. Nobody wanted the chaos. If the public learned biological heat signatures existed inside rock predating all of human history, it would demolish every assumption about life on this planet. Every textbook rewritten. Every timeline collapsed. The panic alone would be uncontrollable. In April, all monitoring equipment was quietly pulled from the site overnight. Every sensor, every camera, every vibration detector, gone without any public announcement. The scientists who had been involved were given an unmistakable message. Keep your mouths shut permanently, or your careers are finished. You'll never publish again. You'll never work in your field again. But the evidence still exists. What's coming? Ronan still has his original drone footage saved on 3 separate hard drives, stored in 3 different locations. The researchers who worked the site also kept private copies of everything. Sonar readings, thermal data, vibration recordings, scan comparisons showing the movement of the figures over time. All of it backed up, encrypted, and hidden where no government agency has been able to reach it. And that data, the very last readings taken before the sensors were ripped out of the ground, is the most terrifying part of this entire story. The 6 figures were still moving, still pulsing, still radiating heat. The one nearest the door was within arm's reach of the entrance, its rhythmic heartbeat pattern shifting. Faster now, stronger, more insistent than any previous reading, like a system powering up after eons of dormancy. Like something emerging from the deepest sleep imaginable and preparing to take its first step into the light. Whatever is happening inside that sealed chamber right now, it's accelerating. And as of this moment, nobody is monitoring it anymore. When they first scanned, 7 figures stood inside. Now there are 6. One escaped a sealed room without the door opening, without breaking a wall, without leaving a single trace that it had ever moved. Where did it go? How did it get out? And the most unsettling question of all, where is it right now?
But there was the unmistakable sound of snoring coming from within the mountain. That's right, snoring from within the mountains.
It could be deep beneath the Atlantic, moving through the crushing darkness of the ocean floor. It could be hidden in some unexplored cave system along the Irish coast, standing motionless in the dark. Or it could be somewhere none of us would ever think to look, because something that passes through solid stone doesn't need to follow roads or coastlines or any boundary that limits human beings. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. If one got out silently, invisibly, without any technology on Earth detecting its departure, what's stopping the other 6? What if that chamber isn't a prison at all? What if they're not trapped? What if they're choosing exactly when to leave? We tell ourselves that humans were the first intelligent beings on this planet, that the Earth belongs to us. That history began when we started writing it down. But whatever stands behind that stone door existed before the Himalayas rose, before the Atlantic reached its current width, before anything resembling a human took a single breath. They survived everything the Earth threw at them. Volcanic fire, ice ages that buried entire continents, the slow grinding collision of land masses, the extinction of nearly every species that has ever lived. And after enduring longer than anything else on this planet, they're choosing this exact moment, our moment, to finally stir. The stone door moved on its own once. The figures inside are radiating human body heat. Their heartbeats are getting stronger with every reading that nobody is taking anymore. They're clustered together at the exit. Every single piece of data collected before the government shut. Everything down points in the exact same direction. They are preparing to leave their volcanic tomb. And when they do, humanity faces the one truth we were never ready for. We are not the first. We have never been alone. And whatever has been sleeping in the stone for 60 million years is almost ready to open that door again. If you've made it this far, you understand exactly why this story matters, and why every person who uncovered it was silenced. Subscribe right now so you don't miss what comes next, because the researchers who risked everything to preserve this evidence believe that door is going to open again very soon. And when it does, you are going to want the full story before the rest of the world finds out.